Hello and welcome to Inside Politics. My name is Anastasiya Lavrina. In an era when information has become as influential as diplomacy itself, the media plays an increasingly important role in shaping international narratives and public perception. This was the central focus of the 4th Shusha Global Media Forum, held under the theme, The Mission of Media in Promoting Peace, Restoring Truth and Rebuilding Trust, bringing together around 160 journalists, editors, policymakers and media experts from more than 50 countries. The forum served as a platform for discussions on the future of journalism, strategic communication and global affairs. During his extensive question-and-answer session with international media, President of Azerbaijan Ilham Aliyev addressed a wide range of issues, including regional security, global geopolitics and the legacy of colonialism. Responding to questions on the subject, he highlighted Azerbaijan's support for peoples living under colonial rule and emphasized the country's commitment to providing an international platform where these issues can be openly discussed. The discussion happened earlier last week in Baku at the international conference Media and Decolonization, Raising Voices, Amplifying Narratives, organized by the Baku Initiative Group. The conference brought together journalists, policymakers and representatives of civil society to examine the role of media in challenging colonial narratives, amplifying underrepresented voices and fostering dialogue on decolonization. Joining us today is one of the participants in both events, Alston Lawrence, Secretary of the One St. Martin Association, former government advisor, journalist and active member of Baku Initiative Group. Today we will discuss the role of media in decolonization process, the challenges facing non-self-governing territories, and the importance of international dialogue in ensuring that underrepresented voices are heard. Also, warm welcome to Baku and to our studio.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, and definitely I love the hospitality of the people of Azerbaijan. I've had a great time here so far.
Thank you very much. It's a great honor for us to host you today on Inside Politics. You were an active participant of two important conferences which took place last and this week. I already mentioned it in the beginning, but for our viewers and for me better understand the situation, could we start with the questions like many people know St. Martin as a Caribbean tourist destination, very beautiful, very attractive, but few understand its political status. Could you explain what life is like on the island today and what challenges your people continue to face?
Yes, this is a very important platform to say something like this, because usually from my island, the only international media is about hurricanes. Like if a hurricane destroys us, then it hits international media. But our people have stories, our people have ideas, and we have a lot to say as well to the international media. And when I go back to that point and that question that you just asked, our constitutional status or our status on the island is quite unique. We're a very small territory of an island, and it's actually split into two colonies, one for the French and one for the Dutch. However, the people that live there, they don't live French or Dutch. There's no French people really or Dutch people. They're just St. Martin people, and we cross the border openly every day. So there is a voice from this island, which I am a part of, the One SXM Association, where we are trying, not really trying, but we're trying to let the world know St. Martin has a story, and the people are also represented here. There is the people of St. Martin, besides the Dutch administration and the French administration. And these people have a history, and these people have something to say, and these people have a destiny that they want to reach together as one island. Forget about the French and forget about the Dutch, respectfully. But right now, the people of St. Martin are very excited to be one again. And we say this thing all the time. We say one island, one people, and one destiny. And so our stories of us getting back together has been a challenge. Even at the UN doesn't recognize St. Martin as a non-self-governing territory, but it is. Why? Because you know how colonialism works. After it seems that colonialism is done, then comes the structures that keep colonialism going on. And when it comes to media has to be decolonized as well in these spaces around the world. because if you don't speak in your own language, your people don't follow what you're saying. And so we have a lot of challenges there when it comes to that, but a lot has been done over the last 10 to 15 years for our people too.
Well, indeed, that's very interesting. And one of the initiatives which indeed promotes the ideas and create a real platform for communications is Baku Initiative Group, which has been actively engaging with representatives of overseas territories. You are also an active member of this group. So from your perspective, what practical impacts has this initiative had on the international discussion about decolonialism?
The practical impact is we still can't measure it, because here we have our stories being shared with other peoples and other nations that never knew about what we're going through. And sometimes we find so much similarities, because colonialism is colonialism everywhere.
We face the same challenges, let's say.
Same challenges, the same challenges in getting our voices heard elsewhere. You know, so it's this Baku Initiative Group in particular has really, from the first time it heard our story in St. Martin, has really latched on to what it is we're saying and has allowed us to share that with the rest of the world.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm sorry for interruption, 2 years ago there was a big conference dedicated to this issue.
Exactly, and that conference was the first ever. It was the first conference ever that looked at St. Martin as a double colonized space. Even in St. Martin, we don't have those discussions enough. So that was major, and that opened up Azerbaijan and Baku to our people, who's like, who are these people across the world that are showing some concern for what our issues are? And that's why we are eternally grateful to Baku. And I wanted to speak to the president. We ran out of time, but I would have told the president, I believe this Baku or Azerbaijan can be, the capital of the new world. When colonialism is gone, Baku has played a major hand in it happening, because we have no other platforms. Most of us have no other platforms to speak on.
Very interesting, and indeed Azerbaijan has become an important platform for discussing decolonialism. Yep. And your participation, as you said in the beginning, probably people there didn't know enough about Azerbaijan, but now Azerbaijan is well known. Yep. So how do you see the future role of Baku Initiative Group and Azerbaijan itself in promoting and supporting the values you are talking about?
I see it without a ceiling. I see Baku as one of the safest places in the world to have these discussions. I've met people here through the two conferences that really cannot go to most of the G7 countries, really cannot travel to certain continents, but here in Baku we all can sit down and we can discuss safely. And I must mention, the people of Azerbaijan are some of the most friendliest people I've ever met in my life. And my island is known as a friendly island. So when I say that, I'm not saying that lightly. The safety that Baku gives to other countries and other peoples, no matter the size, because St. Martin is very small. St. Martin is 100,000 people, French side and Dutch side. So imagine what we're talking about. But that doesn't mean small does not mean insignificant. We all have stories that we all can learn from. Baku is playing a major part, and I would, even the president, hearing his story, hearing the stories of this country are so inspiring to other peoples around the world. I was in Karabakh yesterday as well. That story.
For Shusha Global Media Forum.
I am going to talk about that story for years when I go back home, because this element of returning is so important in this world, and people owning their own space is so important in this world, and we battle with that.
I guess the processes which is taking place in our region are also among the interests of your people, as Azerbaijan also faced the occupation, also the process of restoration, developments. You yourself been to Shusha. I guess it's a great opportunity to see how the restoration, sometimes even rebuilding from the scratch, is happening on the liberated Karabakh and East Zangezur.
And seeing the effort of your president and your country in making sure that people have new narratives about their space. That was very important. I went to the Victory Monument, and this is not a small gesture, this is a major gesture, because everybody who walks by and looks at that, they remember what it means. Even today, I think a couple days ago in Turkey, they were celebrating their 10 years as well after unrest. And so that is quite an important thing when a government decides, listen, not only do we have to let people know what's happening, but we have to change the narrative. And that is why media is as important as technology, as energy when it comes to decolonization. The media and the narrative is extremely important.
I guess one of the key part of the Shusha Global Media Forum, the first, second, third, or fourth, it's a participation of His Excellency President Ilham Aliyev, and the session of question and answers, where the participants have a unique chance to ask the questions and get the answers. And at this forum, President Ilham Aliyev also stated that Azerbaijan supports the rights of peoples in territories such New Caledonia, French Polynesia, and Saint Martin as well. He responded to the question of participants from Congo, if I'm not mistaken. Azerbaijan supports let's say, this country to determine their own future. So how this particular message by the head of Azerbaijani government is being perceived by you yourself as a participant of this forum and the peoples, your peoples, I mean?
It's even hard to explain how it touches my heart. I'm halfway across the world, but to hear a president speak for a president whose country he has already handled. You know, Azerbaijan can continue without talking to anybody else, but your president is extremely locked in and understands that injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. And it so touched my heart to hear him speak and call the names of these places. My country is 100,000 people. Azerbaijan is 10 million people at least. And your president, one part that really stood out to me is he's always strategic. And he speaks of his country and his people as with their strategic partners. And when you have a strategy, it's because you're going somewhere. And he wants the world to go somewhere. I think Azerbaijan is doing a great job of letting the world know, like, you know, it doesn't have to continue some of the bad things in the world. We can be more diplomatic, we can figure things out, and people deserve self-determination.
Well, coming back to the historical part, Saint Martin has remained divided between France and the Netherlands since the Treaty of Concordia, if I'm not mistaken.
Treaty of Concordia in
1648. Yeah. But why does France, let's say, continue to resist calls for greater autonomy or independence from some of its overseas territories, despite its calls for the human rights, democracy, determinations, the principle of self-determination? What is the core reason for that?
Yeah, the French Republic is also going through a lot of unrest now with some of its former colonies, because again, even in Africa right now, France-Afrique, it's a major thing for France. Even though these countries have been independent since the 60s, France is still very much tied in to their economy and their money, and now that these countries are standing up and saying, you know, no, we're good, we're going to continue on our own, you see it's affecting the French Republic. Saint Martin is very small. Guadeloupe and Martinique are very close to Saint Martin as well. Bigger societies, the same problems. You know, it's very hard to manage a country halfway across the world anymore. And to have equality, because French, you know, the French and the Dutch, they really talk a lot about equality. And equality means if this piece of land is this developed, then that piece of land needs to be that developed as well. And in the Caribbean, we suffer from underdevelopment. We still have 20 colonies in the Caribbean, all underdeveloped. And that is our issue now in the world, because when the rest of the world moves on and develops, it looks back at the rest underdeveloped and says, you need to get this fixed. You know, we're on solar energy now. Why are you burning fossil fuels? Forgetting who brought this to our countries. So France in particular, and in Saint Martin we have a lot of movements. Guadeloupe, Martinique, they have their own movements as well for their own nationalism. We are too far to be governed from 6,000 miles away.
And these movements, again, sorry for interruptions, these movements, and specifically what is we see today in Africa, some of the African countries, their dissatisfaction, it's taking more active role within the last 5 or 6 years, specifically when President Emmanuel Macron came to power. So probably the decisions which is being taken by the French government, their attitude to the former colonies, and let's say their willingness to continue its neo-colonialism policy in the 21st century. That's a key reason why so many countries express their dissatisfaction.
It is that, especially that. And it's also because we're in a different world when it comes to media. We have TikTok, we have social media. And so this new generation, they're going to show everybody what they can. A young person in St. Martin, maybe 20,000 miles from here, can go viral and everybody in the world see what they're saying. So us as media, us in media, we need to be very responsible in what we are doing and what we are putting out as well. France is seeing this, and it's becoming unattainable. It's becoming unmanageable, basically, if all of Africa turns around and says, hey, why are we still French? Why? You know, we can do it our own. And that shows how long it takes people's minds to change after colonialism, because all of Africa, almost all of Africa is independent already, but there's still, the mind is still stuck in the location it was at that time. So sometimes it takes a new generation to come up and just look at the world differently. And I think that is what's happening in the French Republic right now.
I think one additional point is that France is willing to intervene into the domestic issues of some other countries. That's why sometimes we do have some difficulties in the bilateral relations between France and Azerbaijan as well. And we also know that French officials have criticized initiatives such as Baku Initiative Group, arguing that they interference the France internal affairs. So being an active participant of Baku Initiative Group, attending the forums here in Azerbaijan, how do you respond to that criticism?
To France's criticism, I think internal affairs are in France. And I don't think Baku Initiative Group is interfering in what they are doing. I think Baku is just helping others with their internal affairs. And I don't think Baku puts any sort of pressure on anybody to work with them. People want to work with Baku Initiative Group. People want to work with what Azerbaijan is doing. And France, it probably rubs them the wrong way. It's probably not their cheese and wine this time.
So more in details about the French control. In the case of Saint Martin, what political, economic or legal mechanism allow France to maintain control? You mentioned media. Yes, exactly. If there is no enough information in the public sources, in the media, in the public TV, then of course people just don't know what is happening there and what policy France is following. But how does it affect the island's ability to pursue genuine the self-determination?
The French, as you know, are a different type of republic. A lot of people rely on government funding. A lot of people rely on government programs. And it's very hard to take people out of that right away and say, listen, go the other way. So there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear amongst people in St. Martin, Guadeloupe, Martinique about being different than it is now. No matter how bad it is, they are fearful of doing it on their own. And that's by design as well. So we have a lot of work to do. Media is helping a lot. In St. Martin in particular, where news on the French side is extremely limited, the south side, the Dutch side, where there are independent news houses, they do as much French news as they can, or news for the French side as they can. And that would include community things going on, initiatives in government, in politics. But I don't know how it is in Europe, but in the islands, news is government regulated. And that means there's not a lot of news until the government has something to say.
So a bit broader question. In your view, what are the biggest misconceptions, let's say, the international community has about the colonialism today?
The biggest misconception is that the international community does not understand, even the United Nations does not clearly understand that St. Martin is a non-self-governing territory. Times two. You know, we have been neocolonialism has just changed the names of the structures. So as much as we may elect our own parliament, and our parliament may choose its executive branch, there's still a governor, and that governor represents the crown on the Dutch side and represents the republic on the French side. And so what happens is, no matter what the local people want to do or decide to do or tell their representatives to do, there's still a higher authority that does not live, understand, or is part of the history of St. Martin. And so when France announces, hey, all low-lying places in the Republic, you know, people need to move, it affects St. Martin a lot more than it does Cairns. It's a major issue, and there's total unrest. If you Google St. Martin, French side, Guadeloupe, and Martinique, you would see riots going on for the last 5 years consistently. Food is 4 times as expensive on those islands. French food. So, you know, and the other thing is that they control our imports. They control how we borrow money. On the Dutch side of St. Martin, we cannot borrow money on the international market. We can only borrow from the kingdom. And so what that is, it ties us even tighter into colonialism than we were before. But the international community, we want them to totally understand that we are a non-self-governing entity. No matter what name they put on it, as long as you do not see us standing in the Olympics or standing at the UN with our own badge, we are not independent. We are still a colony. The names have changed, but we are still a colony.
Yeah, specifically from economic dependence, it affects a lot the country's independence, self-governance, and etc. So once you are back to your country, once you have these intentions to move forward, you had a brilliant discussions, I'm more than sure, here in Azerbaijan with other participants, including those who came from France. And even we know that some members of the Baku Initiative Group, they face pressure and challenges once they are back to their country. So what about your future plans? What you're keen to do, how exactly to work, communicate, even with the media community, let's say, to work together on the promotions of the initiative you have?
I think one thing that this trip has brought up is that perhaps we need an international platform for everybody in the global south, for all the colonies in the world, for all the people.
The platform, sorry, you mean like Baku Initiative Group is here to be established in some other countries as well, or? No,
I mean Baku Initiative Group might be really good for them to create a media platform where all of the different media partners in these different spaces can send content, so we all can see everybody's content. Basically what happens here at the conference, that it can happen consistently with media moving forward. And I spoke to the head of Baku Initiative Group about it, and some of us had the same idea. So hopefully we start to develop something like that, and that there will be extremely important, because too often small peoples think they're alone in their own struggle. But when you see and you hear from others, you realize, you know what, we're not alone, and this is a big issue in the world.
About the message this conference sent to the global community, to the international community, particularly on the issues of decolonization and media representation. What will be your message today?
My message is simple. Colonization still exists in the world, and we need to listen to everyone. We shouldn't have news that only talks about a people. You also need to listen to those people, because their story may be different, especially in a post-colonial, a legally post-colonial space. I think the people of the small islands, the people of Africa, all these people around the world that feel displaced or are moved out of their home space or want to return or have their own self-determination, all of these people have things to say, ideas, culture, and other things to share with the world. And coming here to Baku and being Baku sharing and Azerbaijan sharing their culture with me has been such a life-changing situation for me, or experience for me, so to say. And my message is that all peoples in the world have something to say. So we need to listen to everyone else.
Well, Alston, thank you. Thank you so much for your time. It was a great honor for us to have you here in our studio on Inside Politics. Thank you. We wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our thanks to Alston Lawrence, Secretary of the One St. Martin Association, former government advisor, journalist, and active member of Baku Initiative Group, for joining us today. From the Media and Decolonization, Raising Voices, Amplifying Narratives conference in Baku to the 4th Shusha Global Media Forum, discussions in Azerbaijan have underscored the growing role of media in shaping global narratives, fostering dialogue on decolonization, and bringing greater attention to voices that have long remained underrepresented. Thank you for watching Inside Politics. I'm Anastasiya Lavrina, and I see you next time.